Okay, ready? Can you hardly wait? Okay. Reverend Crystal Hawks here, reading to you today a David Hawkins book, Letting Go. Obviously, I'm not going to read the whole, I'm just going to read just something. Something the Spirit said, read this. Yes, I'm silly. Okay. Silent transmission. Haven't decided if I need these or not. Okay. 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 We describe the person who has reached the state of peace as enlightened, and beings in a state of grace within and beyond that condition are various advanced states of illumination and levels of realization described by the mystics, sages, saints, and avatars. There is a silent, non-verbal benefit of being in the actual presence of an enlightened state. Classically, it would be an advantage spiritual teacher, saint, or sage. Seekers travel great distance to be in the physical presence of this energy field. The devotee or seeker receives silent transmission of the high-frequency energy of the teacher's aura, described as transmission of no mind, grace of the guru, or benediction of the teacher. This transmission happens of its own and is not personal. The state of infinite peace radiates forth unconditionally of its own from the energy field of the teacher or saint. When the Buddha gave his disciple a flower, it was symbolic of the transmission of the energy. If we have been in the presence of a great teacher who radiates this energy, we will never be the same. The most beneficial thing that can happen to us is to have been in the presence of a great teacher, because we pick up the vibration by being in the physical presence of that state of peace and complete surrender. The silent transmission of this realized state is a non-verbal, energetic phenomenon that does not depend upon logic or language. The vibration that is within the aura of the advanced teacher functions as a carrier wave to facilitate our comprehension of the words that are being spoken. So, I talk to people a lot about when you heal something in yourself, when you overcome something, let's say, you create a cure. So when someone else is sitting there in the dark and praying for that help on that certain thing, you've created an energy that they can tap into by you moving through it. I was going to say successfully moving through it, but success to me is contentment, is peace of mind, okay? Transcending the programs. Okay. Your very frequency, the work that you've done, who you are, your very frequency, it affects other people. And ironically enough, within 6 feet is your biofield. So it radiates out and affects people everywhere from everything you do, really. And then when you're in the presence of that energy, but it's just very heartwarming. It's very reassuring, encouraging to know that everything that you do to raise your frequency and vibration, you're creating that for those around you, and that you matter. You're a lighthouse. You're beaming something. You're teaching. You're doing the work just by walking around. Okay? You don't have to rescue people. You don't have to fix them. You just keep raising your own frequency, and then that helps raise everyone else's frequency. Okay, so, but it's the wave of energy and not the words that are the catalytic element. Via silent transmission, the energy from the advanced teacher or saint is incorporated into our aura, our brain function, and our whole being. It's because this energy of peace is transmitted outward into the world that mankind is still alive. It would have destroyed itself long ago without this energy to counterbalance it. That's why our own inner evolution serves all of mankind. By reaching these higher states of lovingness and peace within ourselves, we become a saving presence in the world. And so I remember studying quite a bit of information on one light worker, one being of light, one person that's awake to something, one person that's vibrating in the light is, can counteract 1,000 or 100,000 dark entities. Okay. The higher vibrations, they can't touch you. Okay. If you operate everything from a place of love, like, I love you. I understand that you have to do that. I understand. Okay. I understand that that works that way. Okay. I love, if you can bring in love, that reminds me of, I don't know if you heard me tell this story before, but quite a few years back, I had a dream, and in the dream, there was a book called The Fifth Element. And of course, I thought of the Bruce Willis movie, The Fifth Element, back in, it was in the 80s or 90s. But in the dream, it was a book, and the book was a certain color and lettering, and, everything. I didn't really see the author, but I seen everything about it, and it was called The Fifth Element. And so I researched on Amazon. Gosh, this was like 10 years ago now, or no, about 8 years ago. And the book was there. And I read the book, and it was about the fifth element of business. So the fifth element of everything is love. And so bringing love into everything where you can raises the frequency and changes everything. There's some aspect of everything that you can love. Okay. Surrender to ultimate reality. The hallmark of this level is desirelessness. There is no need to want for anything, because everything manifests in our life spontaneously and automatically without conscious will or effort. Thoughts held in mind at this level are very powerful and tend to manifest rapidly. The phenomena of synchronicity is continuous. The mechanisms of cause and effect and the inner working of the universe stand forth clearly revealed as we are now witnessing the very basis of reality itself. These very high states of awareness happen spontaneously and unexpectedly, and they tend to reoccur and stay for longer and longer durations. And it's holding frequency for longer and longer periods of time. Once this has been experienced, our intention automatically becomes to make the state of peace permanent. How this state occurs and what it is like is demonstrated in the following account, which describes what happened after 3.5 years of continual surrender. It was a cold winter day. Surrender was continuous for 11 straight days at a level of consciousness that had never been reached previously, not even during psychoanalysis. It had to do with the ego, with the ego's very basis of survival, and its identification as an individual. It had to do with how we experience our own existence and the desire to experience our own beingness. As the days went by, the process seemed endless. A doubt surfaced. Was this attempting the impossible? It became clear that the purpose of that doubt itself was a defense mechanism. It was relinquished, and the surrender of continued at great depth. Then, entering a restaurant on that cold, rainy Sunday afternoon, sitting down alone at the table, suddenly the world was miraculously transformed. A profound sense of inner stillness and peace occurred. It was greater than anything imaginable. The experience was beyond time. I studied some information decades ago about, to succeed in life, you die. You experience death while you're alive. So, in other words, you lose everything. You get down to zero. You get down to where you might freeze to death. You might roast to death. You have no money for food. You get down to zero, and you begin again. And you have died in this reality, even though it's a different reality every minute based on your belief and all that jazz. But then you kind of create a whole new. You still have your program, so you're still trying to escape those and work through that. But you're so liberated, right? When you know that you can survive right down to zero, it's extremely liberating. Okay, the experience was beyond time. In fact, time had no meaning whatsoever, nor did space exist in the way in which we commonly experience it. All things were connected. There was only one life expressing itself with one self through all living things. There was no identification with the body and no interest in it. It was no longer any more interesting than any other body in the room. All emotions and events were interconnected, and all phenomena occurred because each thing was manifesting its own inner nature spontaneously, as though movement and growth were the spontaneous unfolding of potential. There was a rock-like quality to the imperturbable stillness. It was obvious that the real self was invisible, without beginning, without end. And then there had been only a transitory identification with the body, and the story that went with the identification as an individual. It seemed very strange that one could previously have thought that one was an isolated body separate from others, with a limited beginning and a finite ending. The thought seemed absurd. There was no longer any feeling of a separate self, and the pronoun I disappeared and became meaningless. I remember last May, I was working in my storage unit, and Spirit asked me, do you want to be the persona, or do you want to be the I am? And then I looked deeper into it, and I was like, unity consciousness, and understanding that I still have my own personality. We each have our own unique perspective, our consciousness from what we've experienced, and we take that with us where we go, but we're still part of the whole, part of the one, part of unity consciousness. And I chose unity consciousness in a marriage to myself. And that was on a blue moon. And that story for another day. Okay, the thought seemed absurd. Okay, there was no longer any feeling of a separate self, and the pronoun I disappeared and became meaningless. Instead, there was the awareness of being all things. It had always been and always would be. True beingness stood outside of time. The period of time that the body had been on earth seemed like a split second, during which the truth of timeless identity had been forgotten, due to being blinded by the smaller self. Then how it had happened revealed itself. There had been a wishful thought to experience separate existence, and this wishful thought had manifested itself as the individual persona, with an individual identity and a physical body to go with it. The interconnectedness of all things was starkly obvious. It was the holographic universe as described by the Buddha and by modern, advanced, and theoretical physics, both of whom agree as to the intricate nature of the universe. Because everything was perfect, there was nothing to wish for, nothing to desire, nothing to create, and nothing to become. There was only that, the very essence of beingness, out of which existence arises. That beingness is the source of existence, yet curiously not its cause. There was a profound familiarity to the awareness. It was as though one had always known it, as if one were home at last. There was no emotion or feelings. There was an awareness of sensation. Even though they seemed to go on, there were no longer personal or of concern. By way of experimentation, a thought was held for a split second to see what would happen. Almost instantly, there was an effect in the physical world. See, this goes along with what we've been talking about with lucid dreaming, creating your reality, creating a new construct that you want to live in, moving from parallel reality to parallel reality, but being quantum and projecting a new reality based on your beliefs. It's all part of the same concept. The thought of butter or coffee, for instance, resulted in the waiter coming over immediately with the items. And yet no word had been spoken. That is happening more and more. And so now, I mean, it is so incredible. I was thinking of one tiny drop, what is it, nitride or whatever, that explosion. That one thought, you're going to create it instantly. And something like this, especially when you're thinking, gosh, I wish I had some butter, because you're not attached to the outcome. You don't care really. I mean, if you have the butter, if you don't have the butter, you're not going to worry about it. You're not going to think, what would my mom think? What are my programs? You're neutral about it. You don't have an attachment to the outcome, so it comes quicker and not muddled. Okay. No words seemed necessary. Communication occurred with anyone on a level of silence. The body drove the car to a meeting that evening where no one noticed anything different. Everyone seemed to be intensely alive. That happens to me so much. It's like I look around. I've experienced stuff so profound my whole life. I mean, as a child, I was psychic as a child. I've been in and out of my body. I phase. I go to different realities. But having lived in a car for 5 years and being homeless for 7, it is a whole other thing of worlds I've seen and died and walked through. I look. It's hard for me to focus on what it is that they're doing and why. And watching people like in the submarine for years, like you'd be undersea in a submarine watching fish. I've been in the cars like doing that with people, and it just, I had already been alternative my whole life and a psychic and into spiritual stuff, but this other level of what I know for sure for me, and to sit around with people who just, you know, eh, and try to be neutral about it, I just don't prefer it. Yeah, and so sitting around, no one noticed anything. Everyone seemed to be intensely alive. Their aliveness showed forth from their beingness, and the self, which was the same for all, shone forth through their eyes. The body spoke to others, spontaneously carrying on normal conversations and behaving in its usual way. At the time, the body seemed like a karmic wind-up toy run by it all by itself, accustomed patterns and programs, not needing any attention in the slightest. It seemed to know what to do and did it very effectively and effortlessly. All conversations and interactions were merely witnessed as phenomena, not directed. So that's the stuff that we've studied for decades too, of being the observer of your own life, like sitting back and watching yourself. It's incredibly enlightening and validating, really, a whole life experience. It seemed like a strange vanity to have once believed that there had been a small self as the author of the body's actions. In reality, the body was at the effect of the universe, and there had never been a doer of its action. Phenomena were as vibrations of the mind that had no separate existence or reality. There was allness only. Only that oneness actually existed. The next afternoon, a thought arose. Now that the way to reality had been revealed, there could be a return to the consciousness of being, that individual person, which had formerly been accepted as real. Right? So once you know outside of your body, then you can be in your body. What a way to get in there just so, right? Yeah. Okay. Just as the air in the room does not experience the contents of the room, there was no longer an I that experienced my own existence. In that space, there was no I to experience the I am. To return to individual consciousness meant that a choice would have to be made. In truth, the choice made itself, for there was no I to make a decision. The desire to experience the individual self became re-energized on its own. The option of letting it go was present, but there was the return of memory of things yet to be finished in the world. As the sense of the I-ness returned, the choices were witnessed, not actively decided. The process of returning was taking place. It could be allowed or it could be let go. It was allowed, and so the process of return continued. When the next morning dawned and the return was complete, but now with a different sense of personal identity. This is exactly what I've experienced through transitioning of living in a vehicle to living in a house. Let's just leave it there in a nutshell. A lot more on that another time. The truth of the self had been revealed. The responsibility for having chosen to experience life once again as an individual was accepted. Yet without being at the effect of belief in individual existence. In fact, by conscious choosing, there was complete responsibility for it. Experimentally, all of this happened automatically. At one time, such state of consciousness as the above were considered to be solely the province of the mystic. At the present time, however, investigation of those states and the information obtainable from them is considered to be the leading edge of science, especially that branch of physics concerned with quantum mechanics and high-energy subatomic particles. Really, there's no science but quantum, right? I mean, every single experiment is affected by the observer. It's all quantum and it's all personal, and you're the personal projector and the personal receiver. Why are you blinking your eyes like that? Because it's fun. You talking to me? Are you talking to me? Yes, I'm nuts. Okay. Quantum physics investigation that these are not things the user better actually events. I'm going to read that again because I kind of lost it. Okay, at the present time, however, investigations of these states and the information obtainable from them is considered to be the leading edge of science, especially that branch of physics concerned with quantum mechanics and a high energy subatomic particles. Investigations of these particles indicate that they are not things in the usual sense, but are actually events that occur as a result of energy frequencies. Everything is frequency. You're the receiver. Your frequency tunes into different realities. Someone can be standing right next to you and tuning into a completely different reality. That's how the holographic universe works. Okay. Science now postulates a transcendence frequency beyond space and time. An impressive body of research in many laboratories has demonstrated that the brain perceives by sophisticated mathematic analysis of frequency patterns. Also, that reminds me of, they say that we came here with a language to Earth, even the first time, and that language was mathematics. These findings have resulted in the so-called holographic paradigm, which states that everything in the universe is connected with everything else, including the human mind. In the hologram, each part contains the whole. Consequently, each individual mind is capable of reflecting the entire universe. The relationship between consciousness and science constitutes a whole field in which there is rapidly growing interest. Blah, 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 that part, right? As indicated by the publishing of such books, The Holographic Paradigm, Wholeness and the Implicate Order, The Tao of Physics, The Dancing Wulu Masters, Mindful Universe, Psychoenergetic Science, and the publication of articles with titles such as Field Consciousness and The New Perspective on Reality, The Unfolding Universe, The Holographic Model, Physics and Mysticism, and The Medium, the Mystic, and the Physicist. Leading among these researchers are neuroscience Carl blah blah blah. Oh, I don't care. Our brains mathematically construct concrete reality by interpreting frequency from another dimension. Okay. Wow, right? So we project reality based on our frequency. I'm going to read that again. Okay. Our brains mathematically construct concrete reality by interpreting frequencies from another dimension, a realm of meaningful patterned primary reality. Primary reality. Oh, now I have to read that again. Okay. Our brains mathematically construct concrete reality by interpreting frequencies from another dimension, a realm of meaningful patterned primary reality that transcends time and space. The brain is, therefore, a hologram, interpreting a holographic universe. The brain is a hologram, interpreting a holographic universe. Man, what does an itchy nose mean? I'm coming into money, 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 money. Okay. It is interesting that the theories of advanced theoretical physics, which are the product of so-called left brain activities, now require a new context in order to be comprehended. The context that is evolving from these left brain scientific researchers matches reality, as witnessed by the mystic, who represents right brain function. Thus, whichever side of the mountain we choose to climb, we end up at the same point, the peak. A third way up the mountain is through the mechanics of surrender. Right. You surrender to knowing that you're on top of the mountain. You surrender to knowing that your thoughts create your reality. You surrender to knowing the universe has your back, and you just shift to the top of the mountain. You don't climb anywhere. Yeah, amen, sister, amen. Okay, a third way up the mountain is through the mechanics of surrender. And each of us, therefore, has the opportunity to verify for ourselves the ultimate nature of reality itself, which is the same as that revealed to the mystic or the physicist. We can envision that with each and every surrender, we take another step up the mountain. Some of us will ascend until the view gets better and choose to stop there. Others will go higher. And then there will be those of us who will not be satisfied until we have reached the very peak and verified it for ourselves. Although at that point, there's no longer an individual person to verify anything, for it has been surrendered completely. Okay, so the next chapter is called Reducing Stress and Physical Illness. I'm just going to give you an overview of the book now. Physiological aspects and stress proneness. Okay, this is Letting Go, the Pathway of Surrender, David Hawkings. And when you research this on YouTube, there is the method of letting go. And I teach this, I've taught it for years, so it's obviously been taught to me in other various ways, but finding when an emotion comes up in your body, finding, the feeling. So you can do it with good thoughts too. But mostly I worked with people with grief or different anxieties. When it comes up, you find where it's living in the body and you just look at it and you don't put a story to it. You just, it's a little chilly. You just look at where it is in your body and you just let it dissolve. You don't necessarily even need to visualize it dissolving. Just watch where it is in the body. Okay. So this book was written in 2012. It's really good stuff. Okay, chapter 4, apathy and depression. I can't versus I won't. The company we keep, choosing the positive. Chapter 5, grief, allowing the grief, handling loss, preventing grief. So in chapter 2, the mechanism of letting go. What is it? Feelings and mental mechanism. Life events and emotions. Mechanisms of letting go, resistance to letting go. And we'll possibly read that another day. Otherwise, get yourself your own book and read it to your own goddamn... what? Stop that. Okay. The anatomy of emotions, goal of survival, scale of emotions, understanding emotions, handling emotional crisis, healing the past. And remember, we can change the past by changing the memory, bring up the image, whatever sight, smells, anything you can bring up, and change the memory. If you have any chronic wound or like a leg injury or something from something that happened, visualize that day over and over again in a different way. It really does affect your physical body. Okay, so we did the grief one. Okay, so fear of public speaking, healing effect of love, owning the shadow, guilt, anger, using anger positively, self-sacrifice, chronic resentment, pride, vulnerability of pride, humility, joy, gratitude, opinions. Okay, courage, the courage to let go. Acceptance, accepting everything as perfect as it is, accepting the self and others. Love, peace, the profound impact of peace, reducing stress and physical illness, medical aspects of stress, energy systems response to stress, kinesiology testing techniques, the relationship of consciousness to stress and disease. Okay, disease-prone beliefs, comparison with others, the benefits of letting go. Oh my gosh, there's lots of good stuff. Relationships, negative feelings, positive feelings, vocational, healing multiple diseases. Okay, so yeah, so it's kind of like it's a quantum shift, because once you let go of a certain belief system, maybe we'll read more of that another day, you have a quantum shift. You shift to reality. It's not necessarily a belief. It's when the belief moves into a knowing that you shift. Okay? All right. Happy 2022 222. Bye for now.